Batgirls Volume 1, One Way or Another by Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, art by Jorge Corona, collecting Batgirls 2021, issues 1 to 6, and prequel stories originally published as B stories in Batman issues 115 to 117, the events of which coincide with events in Nightwing 2016 issues 85 to 87. Trigger warnings of topics that will be brought up include teenage pregnancy, non-consensual sex with a minor, anti-abortion attitudes, parental neglect and abuse, questionable representation of disability, and paraplegia in media, homophobia, and drug use. Becky Cloonan, the co-writer of Batgirls, is known for work published by Tokyopop and Vertigo. Her first major comic work came when she teamed with writer Brian Wood to create Channel Zero, Jenny 1. However, she is best known for her second collaboration with Wood, Demo, a 12-issue limited series that was named Indie of the Year by Wizard Magazine in 2004 and nominated for 2 Eisner Awards, including Best Limited Series. In 2009, Cloonan and Wood expanded Demo and republished it through DC Comics' Vertigo imprint. Cloonan's first solo graphic novel, East Coast Rising Volume 1, earned her a 3rd Eisner Award nomination for Best New Series. Becky Cloonan has won Eisner Awards for 5, a self-published comic anthology made with multiple other creatives, for a self-published comic Becky wrote and drew called The Maya, and The Kelpie by Becky Cloonan in Dark Horse's Foregathered on Christmas Eve, won an Eisner Award in July 2024 for Best Short Story. Becky Cloonan is one of the founding co-creators of Disseltree, alongside the likes of James Tynion IV, Stephanie Phillips, and Scott Snyder. Distillery is a new comic publisher founded in May 2023 for original comic content, which gives its creators an equity share in the company in hopes to improve the treatment of creators in the comic industry by offering an opportunity to reap the benefits of their characters and content. Distillery set aside an additional 3% of company equity to be distributed among the creators who have projects released within the first 3 years. Becky Cloonan won a Eisner for Best New Series for her Distillery published series, Somna, A Bedtime Story. Sadly, the prices of the single issues are a little cost prohibitive in Australia. In 2012, she became the first female artist to draw the main Batman title for DC Comics. Her other work for DC Comics includes American Virgin, co-created with writer Stephen T. Siegel, and Northlanders for Vertigo, as well as both writing and cover art on issues of Gotham Academy and in-book art on a Swamp Thing annual. Becky has done work for Marvel, including a handful of covers for Max Bemis's Moon Knight run, and one of the 11 pencilers that worked on the Mighty Thor issue 700, the start of the 8-issue arc called The Death of Thor, which saw the end of Jane Foster's time as holder of the Thor mantle. Becky Cloonan and Michael Conrad, the other writer on this Batgirls book, have been frequent writer collaborators. They did a Midnighter feature that appeared in Action Comics 1029 to 1033, concluding in the Midnighter 2021 annual. They also co-wrote Wonder Woman issues 770 through 782 and an issue of Doom Patrol. When asked about the time and effort required to draw a full monthly comic, Becky responded, "Most people draw about a page a day. I put in 10 to 14 hours at my studio, and that's just for the art. The script is a whole other story. Then add in editing time, scanning and formatting the pages, lettering, coloring. Oh man, it's a pretty crazy process. I've been lucky to work with writers who give me a lot of freedom to play around and interpret the story, but I think I'm at a point in my career where people who work with me probably know what to expect." When asked which Batgirl she likes to write the most, Becky responded, Steph. And it surprised me because I didn't know as much about Stephanie as when we started writing it. She probably had the background I knew the least about. And I think you just have it in your head that you know who the character is, even though you've only read a couple of things with her in it. You just make assumptions about just a person or a character before knowing that much about them. But then, when we started writing her, I realized there's so much more to her character. And it's not that she's inscrutable at all, because she wears her heart on her sleeve. She's very animated and positive. Michael W. Conrad is the co-writer of this particular Batgirls run. According to his website, Michael worked for 20 years in the mental health field with a variety of underserved and marginalized populations. The work nearly killed him emotionally, happy that he gave so much, but reached a point where it was time to pass the torch. Now he focuses entirely on writing and creating comics, games, and prose fiction. Michael has written for DC Comics, Marvel Comics, Comixology Originals, but to date much of his work has been a product of his own grit and determination. Making comics is never easy. Doing so in a self-funded way without an inbuilt audience is nearly impossible, but it's what he lives for, late nights and impossible dreams. Michael continues to make things on his own through Mystery School Comics Group, a collective he founded early on in his pursuit of making things without any oversight. This DIY ethic will likely never go away, even as he continues to do more work in the mainstream. Michael's other work has included backup stories in various recent Nightwing issues, and releasing this month, Batman the Brave and the Bold, issue 17. When asked how Conrad came up with his parts of the dialogue for the Batgirls, he responded, "I think if you spend enough time thinking about these characters, I can hear these conversations going on in my head. It's provided to me by an intimacy that I've achieved with these characters by reading everything that I can get my hands on, developing each independent character with their independent voice in my mind. Sometimes it's a little bit based on people that I know, but that's more of an influential factor rather than the defining characteristic of how these women speak to each other and to other people." Jorge Corona is a Venezuelan sequential artist and the winner of the 2015 Russ Manning Award. A writer and illustrator, his works include We Are Robin, Nightwing, and The Flash for DC Comics, Big Trouble in Little China, Old Man Jack, Adventure Time Comics, Jim Henson's The Storyteller Dragons, and others for Boom Studios. Corona is also the co-creator of Goners and Number One with a Bullet, nominated for the 2018 Eisner Awards for Best Cover Artist, alongside Jacob Saman for Image Comics and creator of Feathers, his all-ages dark fantasy for Archaea Entertainment. Corona worked as the illustrator and co-creator of Image Comics Middle West with writer and famous variant cover artist Scotty Young. Jorge lives in Denver with his wife and fellow artist Morgan Beam. Jorge Corona's most recent work for Image is on Transformers and Ain't No Grave. Jorge's Boom Studios series Good Luck is a votable option for 2025's Comic Club, the synopsis being, what if luck was quantifiable and something everyone was born with? Everyone except the unfortunates, teenagers born with absolutely zero luck. Now, with the world mysteriously plunged into chaos and reality itself threatened, the unfortunates are the only hope to save the world. When humanity's last hope is a group of teens with no chance of success, the only thing anyone can do is wish them good luck. Sarah Stern, colorist of Batgirls, is a commercial illustrator whose clients include Oni Press, Boom Studios, Random House, First Second, IDW, Dark Horse, Marvel DC, and DreamWorks Animation TV. I'm also just going to precautionarily reassure anybody who's casually Googled Sarah that she is alive and well and was not a murder victim. Jorge mentioned a lot of the starting conversations that the team had with Sarah, especially when initially bringing Sarah in to do the coloring work, was about the brightness of the panels. She has such a good vision about what this toxic palette ended up being that it ended up not dark colors, as in the sense of muted colors, but you have a very saturated palette. Sarah did amazing work by turning this city into a very oppressive environment, which is what you want from Gotham. Gotham is not just lights off. From the get-go, I think we gave her maybe a general description of what kind of what we were coming from inspiration-wise, and then she just came back with this palette, and I was like, oh my god, it's perfect. I think it suits the writers too, because it contrasts with the dark characters, which I think it was one of those things from the get-go, where we entered it into the story Bible for the book. There have been 4 main Batgirls: Betty Cain, Barbara Gordon, Cassandra Cain, and Stephanie Brown. There have been additional Batgirls, but they've all either been short-lived, unofficial, alternate universe versions, or retconned out of existence. Helena Bertinelli briefly assumes the role of Batgirl, but is quickly stripped of the identity by Batman for violating his stringent codes pertaining to violence, and unlike subsequent Batgirls, never got Barbara's blessing to take up the mantle, so remained under the mantle the Huntress, and became the name 3rd most associated with the team Birds of Prey in the comics. Alternate universe versions of the character include Batman collaborator Lucius Fox's youngest daughter, Tiffany Fox. The DC Comics Bombshells universe had a group of female vigilantes known as the Batgirls, including Harper Row, as briefly seen in main continuity when the comic cast covered Batman's The Court of Owls arc, and a Singaporean-American dancer named Alyssa Yeoh, who in the main continuity you might remember from the DC Pride 2022 as the best friend of Barbara Gordon. She was the woman wielding the wooden baseball bat wrapped in the trans flag colors when Barbara's Batgirl had been attacked by Killer Moth. Daphne Blake of Scooby-Doo's Mystery Incorporated fame has also suited up as Batgirl in multiple continuities across both comic and non-comic related media. The first Batgirl was Betty Cain. She's not in this book, but she's frequently forgotten about by history and is worth covering. Betty Cain, also known as Mary Elizabeth Cain, was the original Batgirl, first appearing in Batman issue 139 as Betty Cain, the niece of Kathy Cain, who was Batwoman. After discovering her aunt's dual identity, Betty convinced Batwoman to train her as her sidekick. Batwoman and Batgirl were created to be romantic interests for Batman and Robin, respectively, as well as crime-fighting associates. The characters of Batwoman and Batgirl were originally introduced because of homophobia. As a reminder, the formation of the comic code that plagued comics for most of the 20th century and into the early 21st century, requiring them to align with conservative political views, including the No Gays Clause, followed a moral panic centered around a series of Senate hearings and the publication of psychiatrist Frederick Wertham's 1954 book, Seduction of the Innocent. Wertham claimed that comics morally corrupted impressionable young viewers and readers, hyper-focusing on Batman and Robin for supposedly flaunting a gay lifestyle. Wertham wrote, "They live in sumptuous quarters, with beautiful flowers in large vases, and have a butler. It is like a wish dream of two homosexuals living together." The Betty Cain Batgirl appeared 7 times in the mid-1960s, but then disappeared in 1964 along with Batwoman, Ace the Bat-Hound, Batmite, Vicky Vale, and, temporarily, Alfred, when the new Batman editor, Julius Schwartz, decided she and other characters did not fit the new direction he intended to take the Batman series. After a small handful of appearances across the 70s and early 80s, most little more than cameos, Betty was erased from existence with the universe reboot Crisis on Infinite Earths. In the late 80s, a similar character called Mary Elizabeth Betty Cain, also known as Flamebird, was introduced. There was an in-joke for the creative team, as the original Nightwing and Flamebird were different characters from the Silver Age of Superman books, and Betty's version of Flamebird has an unrequited lust for Dick's Nightwing. The Silver Age versions are loose inspirations for the superhero names of Dick Grayson's Nightwing and Betty Cain's Flamebird, and otherwise have no connection to the Bat family. Betty had minor associations with the Teen Titans West team. The year before the DC-52 reboot, Betty acquires pyrotechnic technology and adopts the codename Hawkfire, and was re-established as the cousin of the Kate Cain Batwoman. After the 2011 DC-52 universe reboot, her past as a younger protege of the first Batwoman, Kathy Cain, was restored and established as having been before she became Flamebird. In the DC Rebirth relaunch, Betty's shipped off to the United States Military Academy, a footnote to the Batwoman comics in much the same way Betty is a footnote to the history of characters who have been Batgirl. Moving on to Batgirls who are actually in the Batgirls comic book, the second and most ubiquitously thought of in the public eye as Batgirl is Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon and her alter ego Batgirl debuted in Detective Comics issue 359 in January 1967, in the story The $1 Million Debut of Batgirl, as the daughter of Gotham City's police commissioner James Gordon. Various media over the years have confusingly adapted her as sometimes the daughter, other times the niece of Commissioner Gordon, and in the 90s movies, a variation of the character was Alfred the Bat Butler's niece. The character was created by television producer William Dozier, editor Julius Schwartz, writer Gardner Fox, and artist Carmine Infantino. Dozier, the producer of the 1960s Batman television series, requested Schwartz to call for a new female counterpart to the superhero Batman that could be introduced into publication and the third season of the show simultaneously. From 1967 to 1988, she operated as the superheroine Batgirl. Barbara Gordon's classic comic book Batgirl costume was designed by artist Carmine Infantino. In her original adventures during the Silver Age of comics, Batgirl is depicted as a librarian by day and a spirited crime fighter by night. In her debut story, while driving to a costume ball dressed as a female version of Batman, Barbara Gordon intervenes in a kidnapping attempt on Bruce Wayne by the villainous Killer Moth, attracting the Dark Knight's attention and leading to a crime-fighting career. This goes a long way to both explaining the choice of villain in Barbara's 2022 DC Pride story alongside Alyssa Yeoh, and the villain choice for the shelved 2020s movie annexed after filming for a tax cut. It would take 44 years before Barbara Gordon got her first solo ongoing series as Batgirl. Barbara Gordon's Batgirl adventures were instead a backup feature in Detective Comics or special one-shot stories for most of the 20th century. In those stories, she was occasionally partnered with Robin, but also with Jason Bard, a Vietnam War veteran with a chronic knee injury who becomes a private detective and a romance interest for Barbara. The conclusion of 1985's Crisis on Infinite Earths changed DC Universe continuity in many ways. Following the reboot, Barbara Gordon was born to Roger and Thelma Gordon, and she is Jim Gordon's niece/adopted daughter. Barbara was forced into retirement during the events of Alan Moore's Batman the Killing Joke, where the Joker shoots Barbara, intending to drive her father James Gordon into madness. The bullet severs her spine, permanently paralyzing her from the waist down. Gordon is grief-stricken upon learning the extent of her injuries, as is her ally and off-on-again lover Dick Grayson, the original Robin, currently known as Nightwing. The infamous scene of Joker paralyzing Barbara Gordon was used in flashback in a Birds of Prey issue, with the only noticeable difference being that the Joker in this scene clearly knew the connection between Barbara Gordon and Batgirl when shooting her, while in the original comic and various other adaptations afterwards, Joker was unaware of her being Batgirl as well. There's been persistent rumors for years as to whether the story was originally even conceived as canon initially, due to the ambiguous ending implying Batman killing the Joker. Some people touted Batman the Killing Joke to be the greatest Batman story ever written. Tim Burton touts it as a major influence for his film adaptation of Batman. Christopher Nolan mentions this story as an influence of his version of the Joker, and has been referenced in many adaptations of the Joker character, including the Batman Arkham series, the Gotham TV show, and multiple animated films. As long as I'm running Comic Club, though, we will never be touching this book. I despise this story with a vengeance for multiple reasons, but the one relevant to this Comic Club is how it treats Barbara. Originally, it was intended that, in addition to Joker shooting Barbara Gordon through the spine and taking nude pictures of her to drive her father insane, the Joker was to be explicitly depicted as raping Barbara Gordon. Artwork for the scene was even created, and the scene ended up cut, although rape was still implied in the final version and incorporated into the animated film adaptation of the same name. Gail Simone cited Babs' paralysis in her analysis article, Women in Refrigerators, about women being hurt or killed for a male character's progression, and author Jeffrey A. Brown noted the Killing Joke as an example of the relatively unequal violence female characters are subjected to in the major DC/Marvel comics industry. While male characters may be critically injured or killed, they are more than likely to be returned to their original conception, while women, on the other hand, are more likely to be casually but irreparably wounded. From 1989 to 2011, Barbara, now wheelchair-bound, was repurposed as a technical advisor, computer expert, and information analyst, taking on the codename Oracle, using her skills in information technology to help both the Batman family and other superheroes. Under their identity, Oracle, she was a member and leader of the superhero team Birds of Prey. The other two members of much of the initial Birds of Prey runs were Black Canary and Huntress, and Edo covered some of their early adventures in a comic review predating them starting the comic cast with Argon. The lineup of the Birds of Prey was used in the early 2000s TV show, with Barbara getting her most accurate live-action portrayal to date, the trio going up against a Dr. Harleen Quinzel as the season's big bad. Barbara also appeared in live-action's Oracle briefly in the second half of the Netflix live-action Titans series. In the Birds of Prey comics, they would be joined by a rotating roster of women, including Power Girl, Big Barda, and Harley Quinn, among others. Oracle's base of operations, which the Birds of Prey frequently share, is the Clock Tower, although the Clock Tower has been blown up on multiple occasions, including during the 2004 crossover arc Batman War Games. In 2003, comic book authors Scott Beatty and Chuck Dixon revised Barbara Gordon's origin with the miniseries Batgirl Year 1. Gordon is a highly gifted child, having graduated from high school early, but initially desires to join law enforcement as opposed to vigilantism in the previous origin stories. After the Birds of Prey comic finished, Babs was subsequently featured in Oracle The Cure, a limited series written by Kevin Van Hook. In September 2011, following the company-wide relaunch, Barbara Gordon stars in a new Batgirl series, one of the New 52 titles featuring the company's most iconic characters. The conclusion of The limited series Flashpoint 2011 establishes a new continuity within the DC universe, with all characters regressing to a younger age and earlier stage in their careers, while remaining in a modern timeline. DC Senior VP of Sales Bob Wayne explained that with each of their titles reverting to issue number 1, our creative teams have the ability to take a more modern approach, not only with each character, but with how the characters interact with one another and the universe as a whole, and focus on the earlier part of their careers of each of our iconic characters. Barbara Gordon's origin was retconned to be the biological daughter of James Gordon and Barbara Eileen Gordon in this continuity. Bob Wayne also stated that the Killing Joke still happened and she was Oracle. Now she will go through physical rehabilitation and become a more seasoned and nuanced character because she had these incredible and diverse experiences. Public reaction to the change has been mixed and has included criticism that DC has reduced the diversity of their character lineup, as well as being disrespectful of the power the character had gained as a symbol to the disabled community in her role as Oracle. DC Comics co-publisher Dan DiDio explained the decision by stating that we didn't want to turn our back on the diversity issue, but she'll always be the most recognizable Batgirl. We are working with concerns to diversify the line. We're also looking to reposition to be reflective of today's audience. Gail Simone, who wrote the series, stated, "For many years I got to write the character as Oracle, and there is, to this day, no character who means more to me. This is classic Barbara as she was originally conceived, with a few big surprises. It's a big shock, for sure, but we're doing everything we can to be respectful to this character's amazing legacy while presenting something thrilling that a generation of comic readers will be experiencing for the first time. Barbara Gordon, leaping, fighting, and swinging over Gotham. Now, when citizens of that city look up, they are going to see Batgirl, and that is absolutely thrilling." In the new, revised continuity, the events of The Killing Joke took place 3 years before the current storyline, and while it established she was paraplegic during that time, Barbara Gordon is written as having regained her mobility after undergoing experimental surgery at a South American clinic. Series writer Gail Simone stated that while the character is one of the smartest and toughest women in comics, one thing the book is truly about is that the after effects of something like PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, or other trauma-related syndromes can strike even very smart, very intelligently tough people, even soldiers and cops, a subject that is generally overlooked in comic books. She also explains the method of the character's recovery is based upon real-life experiences, in that some of the best real-world work in the field of mobility rehabilitation is coming from South Africa. People have been talking about this as if it's some sort of mystical thing like returning from the dead, but there are treatments and surgeries that can restore mobility in some cases. Barbara's spine was not severed. This makes her a candidate. In October 2014, the monthly Batgirl title underwent a soft reboot with a new creative team, Brendan Fletcher and Cameron Stewart as co-writers, and Babs Tarr as artist, exploring Barbara Gordon's attempts to start a new life as a PhD student in the hip Gotham borough of Burnside. While seemingly light and engaging compared to Gail Simone's darker preceding run, the new arc ultimately dealt with Babs' inability to fully escape her earlier trauma. In March 2016, DC Comics announced it would be relaunching all of its monthly titles in an initiative called DC Rebirth. The relaunch restored elements of the pre-Flashpoint DC continuity while maintaining elements of the New 52 as well. The DC Rebirth Batgirl remained Barbara Gordon, who would star in 2 monthly series, Batgirl Volume 5, written by Hope Larson, and Batgirl and the Birds of Prey, written by Julie Benson and Shauna Benson. And the 2 comic book titles debuted in July and August 2016 respectively. In Volume 5 of Batgirl, Barbara Gordon is a student attending Burnside College in the trendy Burnside neighborhood of Gotham City. Alicia Yeoh, Barbara's friend, seen in DC Pride 2022 anthology that we covered for Comic Club in 2023, was introduced and featured in the New 52, Burnside, and Beyond Burnside runs of Barbara's Batgirl comics. Barbara later resumed her role as Oracle, providing comms and tactical support to the Birds of Prey and the Batman family once again as part of the 2020 Infinite Frontier relaunch, which restores much of the DC Universe status quo from before the New 52. She takes on the role during the Joker War storyline, where the team needs a greater tactical advantage than ever to overcome the Joker's latest plot, and after her spinal cord implant begins to show signs of overuse. However, she retains the right to join Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown in suiting up as Batgirl again in the future. Arguments have been made that Barbara is the most important member of the Bat family. Without her, Batman could never have learned to embrace trust enough to build a Bat fam. No other member of the Bat family, except Alfred, is as unafraid of confronting Bruce's own fragile ego and brooding. Barbara forces Bruce to accept trust, and she refuses to be controlled by him. She chose to be Batgirl on her own and did not ask for his permission. She defines that role on her terms, whether he likes it or not. At the same time, she constantly reminds him of the value of warmth and kindness, that family and community can be a source of strength rather than weakness. Barbara has consistently been the glue bonding together both the Bat fam and at times the entire superhero community for over 3 decades now. Overall, in modern comics, Barbara Gordon is portrayed as a strong-willed, ambitious, pragmatic, resourceful, and heroic character. The third Batgirl was Cassandra Cain. Cassandra Cain's first appearance was in Batman issue 567 in 1999, created by Kelly Puckett and Damian Scott during the iconic No Man's Land event that was taking place across the entirety of the Bat books at the time. For context, No Man's Land is possibly the most iconic ever Bat event, seeing Gotham City suffer a contagion outbreak and a cataclysmically major earthquake, resulting in the US government evacuating most of the civilian population, then declaring Gotham a no man's land, destroying all bridges leading to the island, and setting up a military blockade to prevent people from entering or exiting. Gangs and various supervillains Batman had battled over the years swiftly take over the city, subdividing the city along gang territory lines, battling each other to increase their control over the city. The police, run by Commissioner Gordon, form a competing gang to protect the remaining citizens, teaming with the Bat family to try regaining control of the city. No one in the Batman family had an easy childhood, but Cassandra Cain may have had the worst. Raised from infancy under the tyrannical and abusive thumb of her father, the world-class assassin David Cain, Cassandra was taught violence before she was taught anything else, even how to speak. Cassandra was not taught the ability to speak and was unable to read. Her ability to fight was her first language. Her father considered language and literacy a waste of memory and brain space for someone training to be the perfect weapon and the ultimate killing machine. Cassandra could read others' body language and predict their next moves based on stance and minute muscle movements. Yet, despite her father's abuse, Cassandra understood the difference between good and evil. As she grew older, she realized what her father had done to her and escaped him, fleeing to Gotham City, where her life would be forever changed for the better. After proving herself to Batman and his allies, she was taken under Bruce Wayne's wing and taught to use her unique skills to be a hero. Batgirl Volume 1 is Cassandra Cain's first solo title and was the first ongoing book featuring a Batgirl character. It started publication in April 2000 and was cancelled 6 years later. We learnt that Lady Shiva was Cassandra's mother. Lady Shiva, for those of you who remember the Batman Death in the Family comic club at the beginning of the year, was one of the 3 women that Jason Todd incorrectly suspected was his biological mother. Lady Shiva is an assassin for hire and a Chinese and Japanese martial arts grandmaster, and considered one of the most skilled hand-to-hand combatants in the DC universe. Over the years, Cassandra Cain has also assumed the names of Black Bat and Orphan. At one point, Cassandra took on the role of a villain by becoming the head of the League of Assassins, following the 1 year later event continuity jump, made evil by Slade Wilson aka Deathstroke via injection of the same substance that he had used on his daughter Rose Wilson aka Ravager, causing a complete 180 in the character's personality, which had been steadfast against killing up to that point. Eventually the compound wore off, and after a sting with the team called the Outsiders, Cassandra Cain was eventually adopted by Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, after turning on her father, and is one of Bruce's 5 children in current continuity, as well as being his only daughter. Cassandra over the years has built strong friendships with Stephanie Brown and Tim Drake especially, so much in fact that when a event called Convergence pulled a bunch of cities and domes out of dying timelines, in their case the pre-2011 New 52 timeline, the trio banded together as the champions working together to protect their Gotham City during its final hours. The character made her cinematic debut in the DC Extended Universe film Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn, portrayed by Ella J. Basco, but they literally changed everything about the character. Instead of being a silent character, she was loud and brash. Instead of being kept apart from society, she was made a kid from the streets. In the comics following the events of Flashpoint in 2011, Cassandra Cain was largely gone from the DC universe, only properly being reintroduced after a couple cameos in the DC Rebirth era in 2016, fully rejoining The Gotham Knights team in Detective Comics, a lineup that also consisted of Red Robin, Tim Drake, Spoiler, Stephanie Brown, Azrael, John Paul Valley, Batwing, Lucas Fox, and a reformed version of Clayface, Basil Carlo, led by Batman and Batwoman, Cain. FYI, this is one of the current votable options in Suggestion September for the 2025 Comic Club. Eventually, the Gotham Knights disbanded and Cass met Barbara Gordon, who wanted to help teach her to speak and read better. While the Joker war raged through the streets of Gotham, a event where the Joker gets his hands on Bruce Wayne's fortune and Batman's weapons and hires large armies of thugs to terrorize Gotham, residents living in fear of the marauding Joker gangs, Cass and Steph decide to give symbols of hope to the people there. They put down the codenames Orphan and Spoiler and claimed the title Batgirl for themselves. Since then, Cassandra has starred in tonight's Batgirl series, in November's Comic Club book Spirit World, the 2023 Birds of Prey run to try averting a prophecy that Barbara Gordon would die, and is slated in November 2024 to have her own solo Batgirl series again. Cassandra is still socially awkward, loves long hot showers, which is referred to in Batgirls issue 1 when Steph remarks on how short a shower Cass has taken, and is still somewhat of a minimalist when it comes to the spoken word, but her character has grown, her longing for family in many ways unconventionally found with her found family of the Bat Fam, through Bruce's adoption of her, but also through Barbara's mentorship and Stephanie's direct sisterly attitude. The fourth Batgirl was Stephanie Brown. Stephanie Brown first appeared in Detective Comics issue 647 in 1992 and was created by Chuck Dixon and Tom Lyle. Stephanie Brown's dad, Arthur Brown, is the criminal Clue Master, a second-rate rip-off of the Riddler and recurring minor character since his first appearance in Detective Comics issue 351 in 1966. In her origin story arc, Stephanie, seeing her father's villainous activities, suited up as the amateur crime fighter Spoiler, taking it upon herself to foil her father's villainous schemes. Establishing herself as a Gotham vigilante, she would initially take a hot and cold relationship to Batman and his allies. Dixon created the Clue Master's daughter Stephanie as simply a plot device for this story, seeking to spoil her father's plans. However, the character was well received by fans. The following year, Dixon launched the first ongoing Robin series starring Tim Drake and featured the Spoiler as a foil and love interest for him. In the early days, Tim Drake knew Spoiler's civilian identity, but Stephanie didn't know Tim's, which became a source of frustration between the two. After putting away her father, Stephanie had to contend with her mother's increased depression and addiction to pain medication, and had to thwart an escape attempt by her father. Over a multitude of missions, she won Tim's trust, and they began dating. The character was at the center of the high-profile teen pregnancy storyline in 1998, when she revealed she was pregnant with her ex-boyfriend's child, which was ultimately given up for adoption, which caused Wizard magazine to name Robin the best ongoing comic book of the year. It's worth noting, though, that the story is the peak example of Chuck Dixon's extreme conservative views erupting to the forefront. While the story does at the time manage to provide touching moments between Steph and Tim navigating the pregnancy milestones, and is a story about a teenage girl placing her child up for adoption in order to give her daughter a better chance at a life, Stephanie is also frequently during this time used as a political mouthpiece by Dixon to spout pro-life or anti-abortion sentiments and talking points. After this, Tim goes away to boarding school, causing their relationship to break apart. Batman back in Gotham brings Spoiler into the fold, telling Stephanie Robin's civilian identity is Tim Drake, this betrayal driving a wedge between the two. Spoiler begins training with Batman, Cassandra Cain's Batgirl, and briefly with Birds of Prey under Barbara Gordon's tutelage. Stephanie and Tim, as she now knows him, reconcile. Even after Batman, having decided that she was not crime fighter material, tells her to hang up her costume and have the Birds of Prey stop mentoring her, she still patrols secretly in addition to going on occasional dates with Robin in their civilian identities. Stephanie and Tim have an on-off relationship, Stephanie remaining an integral part of the Robin supporting cast for over a decade until the 2004 crossover storyline, Batman War Games. Stephanie Brown, at the time Tim Drake's recent ex-girlfriend and the costumed adventurer previously known as Spoiler, volunteered for the role of Robin upon Tim's resignation after his father, Jack Drake, discovers Tim Drake's double life and forces Tim to quit after having pointed a gun at Bruce Wayne, demanding his son back. After catching a female classmate of Tim's trying to seduce him, she breaks off ties with Tim and angrily decides to put her attention elsewhere. Creating a homemade Robin costume, Stephanie sneaks into the Batcave and demands that Robin train her as the new Robin. Batman reluctantly accepts her as the new Robin, puts her through several months of intense training, and makes her a better costume with roughly the same design as Tim's. As Robin, she patrols with Batman, but he thinks she isn't skilled enough to replace Tim. Batman fired Stephanie, the girl wonder, for not obeying his orders to the letter on 2 occasions. Stephanie then stole one of Batman's incomplete plans to control Gotham's crime and executed it. Trying to prove her worthiness, Stephanie Brown inadvertently set off a gang war on the streets of Gotham. While trying to help end the war, Stephanie was captured and tortured by the lunatic crime boss, Black Mask. She managed to escape, but apparently died shortly after due to the severity of her injuries. There was some controversy in the fan community about both the character's death by extended torture and the fact that even though she served as Robin for a time, she received no monument or memorial in the Batcave during the years of her apparent death, unlike the second male Robin, Jason Todd, following his death in Batman: A Death in the Family, as covered in the February 2024 Comic Club. Regarding the former issue, at a 2011 Writers' Festival, the former Batgirl writer in 2004, Dylan Horax, said that the writers were told from the start that Spoiler would die in the War Games crossover, and she was made Robin purely as a trick to play on the readers, that we would fool them into thinking that the big event, War Games, was so that Stephanie Brown would become Robin. The decision was unpopular with both him and then Nightwing writer Devin Grayson, and he felt pleased and vindicated over the eventual controversy. Horrocks even went to the trouble of minimizing Stephanie's presence in the Batgirl book and any major connections between the book and the War Games event not wanting to be associated with the decision. In 2007, Dentadillo responded to questions about the absence of Stephanie's tribute from the Batcave, saying that the official position of DC Comics is that she was never really a Robin, despite in-comic panel claims to the contrary. Stephanie's death was later retconned as having been faked by famous Gotham doctor Leslie Tompkins. Batman reveals his doubts about her death, leading him to not erect a memorial for her in the Batcave. Since her secret identity had been compromised, Leslie faked her death so villains could not use her against Batman as Black Mask had done. Living with Leslie in Africa under an alias, Stephanie had been performing volunteer work until an attack from a local witch-hunting tribe prompted her to return to crime fighting, and subsequently to Gotham. Stephanie reunites with her mother, enrolls in Tim's high school, and rejoins the Bat family. For years she operated on and off as the Spoiler, graduating high school off-panel and becoming a student at Gotham University while living with her mother. Cassandra Cain, having become disillusioned following various events, including the apparent death of Bruce Wayne at the time, gives Stephanie her Batgirl costume. After operating as the new Batgirl in Cain's costume, Stephanie is confronted by Barbara Gordon, who tries to reason with Stephanie to get her to stop being a vigilante, as she still saw Stephanie as an impetuous youth remembering her role in Batman War Games. Stephanie impresses Barbara in defeating the Scarecrow, and Barbara decides to allow Stephanie to continue on as Batgirl. Barbara later takes a job as an assistant professor at Stephanie's school to continue keeping in contact with her. Barbara also designs a costume for Stephanie to replace Cassandra's tattered costume, incorporating various elements of both the Spoiler and previous Batgirl costumes. Stephanie Brown headlined her own series from 2009 to 2011, as well as making appearances through various Batman and Batman spin-off series. During this time, Stephanie as Batgirl and Tim Drake as Red Robin team up in the crossover story Collision to take on Ra's al Ghul and the remainder of the League of Assassins, and one final confrontation with her father. During the Convergence storyline, in which a bunch of cities and domes are pulled out of dying timelines, in their case the pre-2011 timeline, Stephanie, who still uses the Batgirl title, is chosen as the champion of her version of Gotham City. Tim Drake as Red Robin and Cassandra Cain as her sidekicks, and the three fight other cities' champions in order for their city to survive. This dying Convergence timeline sees the issue close out with a post-battle, romantically reunited Stephanie and Tim on a couch in each other's arms, listing off each other's list of battle bruises. Stephanie thinking, I don't want my world to be destroyed, I want to live, but if it all has to end, and then part of me wishes it could end right here. Following the Flashpoint events which triggers the 2011 New 52 era, Stephanie's time as the Spoiler, Robin and Batgirl was retconned to have never happened, with her being reintroduced having just become the Spoiler in Batman Eternal. However, her history as Robin was later restored in the 2016 Detective Comics run. As previously mentioned during the Joker War, Stephanie and Cassandra reclaimed their bat symbols. Stephanie receives a new costume, which is an amalgamation of her spoiler outfit and a previous Batgirl suit. Barbara Gordon, now primarily operating as Oracle again, explains to Huntress that Stephanie and Cassandra will share the Batgirl title, but that Barbara reserves the right to occasionally suit up as Batgirl in the future. In Batman Urban Legends, it's revealed that she and Tim broke up and are not speaking, although she is supportive when he comes out as bisexual and starts dating Bernard Dowd, as seen in the DC Pride 2022 The New Generation comic club that we did in 2023. Stephanie Brown first appeared in live action in an episode of Batwoman, followed soon after by a loose adaptation of Gotham Knights, and in a photo on Barbara Gordon's desk in Titans. She's appeared in animated shows including Young Justice, Kite Man Hell Yeah, Batman Cape Crusader, and is a DLC character in a number of DC Lego and Scribblenauts games. Stephanie's personality could be best described as headstrong, outgoing, and upbeat. While a bit of an outlier in Gotham City's superhero community, she's quick to make friends. Her determination and stubbornness has proven both an asset and a detriment as she strives to make a name for herself. Plot summary. Prologue. So my understanding is that a number of bombings occurred in Gotham City. As a result, the citizens are nervous, so the mayor allows the Magistrate Program, a private mercenary group that attempts to stop crime before it happens, full permission to perform police activities in Gotham City. In one alternate reality shown to DC readers called Future State, they took control of Gotham City, turning it into a police state. They are intended as a replacement for vigilantes in Gotham. In the main reality, whilst this Magistrate Program is running, a new villainous CEO who created the Magistrate, called Simon Saint, and Scarecrow team up to develop and enact something called the Fear State Theory, where society is evolved by exposing it to tremendous fear so it can improve, similar to how Bruce became Batman. The backup in Batman 115 begins with Batgirl, Cassandra Cain, knocking out Magistrate soldiers, and her communication link with Oracle is cut. Oracle sends Stephanie Brown out for backup. Just as Steph meets up with Cass, a new voice cuts over the frequency and taunts them. Back at the clock tower, Oracle is having her own troubles with the network. This same hacker, who goes by the name of Sia, informs Oracle that she and her Batgirls have eaten well for too long, and Sia's determined to take them all down. In Nightwing issue 84, Nightwing is brought back to Gotham by the mysterious hacker masquerading as Barbara Gordon. Upon reuniting with the real Barbara Gordon, Dick realizes that Barbara did not send the message. Barbara Gordon realizes she needs to help out more and suits up as Batgirl once more. Batgirl destroys the first Oracle network base in the clock tower, taking out her frustrations on the servers and other tech, and so the network can't be used against Oracle's assets and Barbara's friends. Who is Nightwing? To the Robin chart chums! So as a quick Robin timeline recap, Dick Grayson, created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger, first appeared in Detective Comics issue 38 in April 1940 as the original incarnation of Robin, Batman's crime-fighting partner. So I realized in preparation for this, we've danced around Dick from bed reading part of a Nightwing comic for a charity stream to providing general context for the various other holders of the Robin mantle that appeared in previous comic clubs, but we haven't actually explored Dick with any level of detail. So diving headfirst into Dick, Bill Finger recalled in an interview, Robin was an outgrowth of a conversation I had with Bob Kane. Batman had a combination of Douglas Fairbanks, actor known for his swashbuckling roles in silent films, including The Thief of Baghdad, Robin Hood, and The Mask of Zorro, and Sherlock Holmes. Holmes says he's Watson. The thing that bothered me was that Batman didn't have anyone to talk to and got a little tiresome, always having him thinking. I found that as I went along, Batman needed a Watson to talk to. That's how Robin came to be. Robin called me over and he was going to put a boy in the strip to identify with Batman. I thought this was a great idea. Dick Grayson played second string Batman for years as a sidekick, decades of real-world time. Robin found some independence by being part of first the Teen Titans, then the Titans, a superhero team similar to the Justice League but younger members, which we're going to look at the latest comic run of by Tom Taylor in October 2024. Dick gets shot by the Joker in one story, causing Batman, who was already not pleased with Grayson's Titans duties, firing him as Robin. Grayson left Wayne Manor after this. Realizing he didn't need Batman to be his guardian anymore, Grayson decided to give up his superhero career altogether. For guidance, he turned to Superman. Superman told him a story about a Kryptonian known as Nightwing, who, even after being rejected by his family, fought for justice. In Tales of the Teen Titans, issue 44 in 1984, Grayson, now a young adult, is inspired by Superman's story to become his own hero under that same superhero persona of Nightwing, a story created by comic writers legends Marv Wolfman and artist George Perez. Dick carries a pair of Estroma clubs made from an unbreakable polymer that were wielded as both offensive and defensive weapons. Some depictions display these tools with a mechanism to shoot a grappling hook attached to a swing line, while in other instances they can act as line guns, similar to the ones Batman uses. The clubs could also be thrown with such skill by Grayson, and possibly due to their design, that they would ricochet off walls and objects to hit multiple targets, then return to his hands. Dick Grayson has had a number of romantic interests, including fellow Titans member Starfire, who we'll discuss in greater depth in next month's Titans Comic Club, and Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, among many others. Nightwing's hometown, when not in Gotham, is usually Bloodhaven. Nightwing's costume has evolved over the decades, away from its 70s disco-style origin. It's worth noting that there is overlap in personality and skill sets between the Robins, which will vary depending on the creative team writing them. Generally, though, Dick Grayson was the happy-go-lucky fun Robin that quipped a lot. He was a competent detective with the patience and compassion required for solid leadership and mentorship skills. Skill-wise, he's known as the best acrobat, gymnast, and aerialist of the Robins. Tonight's issues will only have a little bit of Dick, but Dick will pop up again, more prevalently, next month. In Nightwing, issue 85, Barbara Gordon asks Stephanie Brown, Cassandra Cain, and other heroes to stay alert in case Sia tries to disseminate false information. Barbara Gordon hacks into the Sia's camera, learning Sia is located up in the Magistrate's headquarters. Sia infiltrated the Magistrate's flying headquarters, Skybase 1, posing as one of several children from wealthy families whose parents had paid for them to be kept safe on Skybase. However, Sia seemingly shows Cassandra Cain a spoiler inside Barbara's old base of operations, the Clock Tower. The backup story in Batman 116 begins at the Clock Tower as Batgirl, Stephanie Brown, and Cassandra Cain regroup only to find that Oracle has moved her operations elsewhere. Before they can come up with a battle plan, Magistrate forces move in to engage the Batgirls. The Magistrate bombards the Clock Tower with explosives, absolutely obliterating it. The Batgirls narrowly escape. While the Batgirls change into their street clothes, news reports run with a statement from Simon Saint declaring the Batgirls as terrorists who blew up the Clock Tower. Reporter Grace O'Halloran denies these accusations, but she's only one lone voice in a cacophony of bad PR for the Bat family. Not knowing where they stand, Stephanie and Cassandra embrace, committing to each other that they'll stick together because they're Batgirls. In Nightwing 86, Nightwing and Oracle bring down the Magistrate's skybase, with Sia, a young girl, escaping the heroes, slipping away in the confusion and returning to the Sia's own hideout. The backup in Batman 117 has Cassandra Cain and Stephanie Brown lying low at their designated hideout, a motel called The Homes. With their comms down, they wait several days until Barbara Gordon finally arrives with supplies. She tells them to wait a little longer, as she has a lease on a new loft that can be used as a hideout and residence starting in a few days. Barbara leaves to crash with Dick. While the Batgirls continue to wait, they get antsy and step out onto the fire escape ladder. The Sia spots them and taunts them via their TV, which they chuck out the window. Barbara finally shows them back up, collecting Cassandra and Stephanie to take them to their new shared living location. Batgirls 2021, Issue 1, One Way or Another, Part 1 of 6. Following the events of Fear State, the Batgirls are picking up the pieces. As the Oracle Network and their iconic Clock Tower headquarters have been destroyed, they have relocated to a loft in Gotham's latest gentrifying neighborhood, The Hill, which is currently the site of a rash of serial killings, as well as graffiti murals drawn by a street artist known only as Tutor. Stephanie is characteristically optimistic about the move, while Cassandra is largely apathetic. Barbara warns them that they need to keep a low profile to avoid being found by Sia. A future story is set up with the spellbound flyer about an art gallery in the Hill. Additionally, Cass recovers her fluffy unicorn bathrobe from some hoodlums that mug her in the alley as they move in, and also takes their muscle car, superior to the Bat scooters Babs has rustled up. They name the car Bondo. Michael W. Conrad, the co-author of these issues, confirmed for me via Twitter that Bondo is a compound that is used to repair holes and dents in cars. You've seen it on beta cars. The morning after the move-in, Barbara puts the Batgirls to work rebuilding the Oracle network, but while they are working, they notice members of a local gang, the Hills Angels, apparently robbing some construction workers. They attack the muggers, but notice the workers are acting strangely, almost zombie-like. They eventually get home at 3 a.m., and Barbara, worried that they had been killed or captured, is waiting for them. She orders them to get some sleep, but they notice that their neighbor is throwing a human-sized garbage bag in a dumpster in the alley next to their building. They go out to investigate and are attacked by a group of former magistrate agents called the Saints. Meanwhile, Sia hacks into Barbara's new computer rig. Trivia Sia's monologue talks about observer theory, which suggests that our brains simplify the complex universe into concepts we can manage, influencing even the fundamental laws of physics we observe. Essentially, our brains compress the noise of reality into simple signals which can trigger a reaction or be imprinted into memory to alter the probability of a future reaction. These impressions indicate the increased or decreased likelihood of another pattern appearing next in a sequence. So the explanation of the issue is adjacent to being correct, but is also taking some fictional liberties, which is kind of fitting with the choice of Sia as narrator. Music trivia. The next time on Batgirls, when the Saints go marching in, often referred to as simply the Saints, is a traditional black spiritual song. It originated as a Christian hymn, but is often played by jazz bands. One of the most famous jazz recordings of the Saints was made in 1938 by Louis Armstrong and his orchestra. General thoughts on this issue for me include loving the friendship between Steph and Cass, and it's interesting to see how Babs' dynamic is different to that of the other Batgirls in the group. Batgirls 2021, Issue 2, One Way or Another, Part 2 of 6. The Batgirls attempt to fight the Saints, but they are outnumbered and outpowered, only narrowly escaping. The Saints believe they are taking their orders from Simon Saint, alive and in hiding, but in fact they are being controlled by Sia using a voice modulator. The next night, the Batgirls patrol the neighborhood looking for the Hill Ripper and notice the Hills Angels and GCPD officers building some kind of monument from a pile of stolen goods. When they get home, Stephanie secretly applies to be a model for a local art gallery. Meanwhile, back at the warehouse, Babs has a convo with Dick where she denies being a helicopter mum and not being so old to have forgotten what it's like. Babs gets to vent a little and talk through her process while Dick's supportive and has confidence in her. Cass is adjusting to the new place, finding it fun to be living with Babs and Steph. They have a bonding with Cass in the kitchen, giving Cass her first piercings so she can wear earrings equipped with comms. Stephanie is convinced that one of their neighbors, Mr. Green, is the Ripper and spies on him while they are out rebuilding the Oracle network. They hear another neighbor, Mr. Dhaliwal, call for help as he is robbed by the hypnotized road workers from before. The Batgirls foil the robbery, but Mr. Dhaliwal asks them to let the men go, only asking that they try to recover a pot one of them stole, which belonged to his late wife. The Batgirls follow the fleeing men to a courtyard where Tutor is live streaming as he paints his latest mural, pontificating about militarized police states and unchecked privilege by the Gotham community. A mind-controlled crowd has gathered around him. Cassandra says they need to stop him, but Stephanie is also hypnotized by Tutor. Trivia. All Stars by Smash Mouth is the name of the song that Cass hates and Steph listens to in Bondo the Car, as noted by Diablo Kyle, and was made famous by Shrek. General thoughts. There was a panel, see bottom left of the slide, where they're talking about the Hill Ripper, and Steph refers to the unspecified gender as him, her, them, instead of assuming a gender, just a subtle sign of progress in comics that I appreciated. The encounter with the Saints happens literally out the back of their building, I'm pretty sure. I'm surprised Babs didn't want them to completely relocate after that. And they've progressed Cass, where she still speaks way less than Steph and Babs, but she's no longer silent or monosyllabic, like I've seen her depicted in earlier comic runs. Batgirls, 2021, Issue 3, One Way or Another, Part 3 of 6. Entropy, noun, is defined as a lack of order or predictability, a gradual decline into disorder. Cassandra is able to get Stephanie to shake off Tudor's mind control, and the Batgirls rush him, but he hits them with a mix of fear toxin and nitrous oxide that causes them to hallucinate their supervillain fathers. Cassandra has enough wherewithal to pull them out with her grappling hook. In the clear air, they recover and head home. Tudor is holding an art show at the docks on the weekend, so Barbara decides the Batgirls will stake it out and be ready to capture him. Barbara reluctantly agrees to also attend in civilian garb when Stephanie begs her. At the art show, which is on the deck of a docked ship, Barbara bumps into her college boyfriend, Charles Dante, who is now an art therapist. Tudor's installation is revealed to be a huge structure made of the attendees' stolen possessions, and they begin to pull it apart, but they all simultaneously receive a video call from Tudor. Barbara realizes from the background that he is inside the ship, and the Batgirls rush in to confront him. The Batgirls try to fight Tudor, but he is again able to take over Stephanie's mind, and Cass struggles to fight both of them without hurting Stephanie. She flies into a rage when Tudor almost hits Stephanie, and he flees. Barbara tells him not to pursue him, as he likely has traps prepared. The Saints are watching from a distance, and when the Batgirls do not chase Tudor, they head down to the docks to pick up their trail. Back at the Batgirls' loft, Stephanie feels like the weak link of the team, as she was the only one susceptible to Tudor's mind control, but Cass reassures her she is stronger than she thinks. Cassandra returns Dr. Dhaliwal's pot retrieved from Tudor's sculpture without letting him see her. Just before she goes to bed, Barbara gets a call, apparently from Nightwing, but when Dick starts insulting her, she realizes it is Sia using a voice modulator. Sia hacks her computer system and puts an image on every screen of Nightwing, bloodied, tied up, and seemingly infected with Joker venom. In general thoughts for issue 3, I love the narration section where the narrator sasses the reader saying, "You skimmed to this part of the book. The Saints had a cool intro earlier in the book. Trust us. Actually, if you didn't read that part of the book, check it out and come back when you're done. Go on, we'll wait." I noticed a lettering mistake on that same panel, see top right of the slide, because there's a weird line of text which says "it means a lot that," which overlaps with the dialogue box. It's only in the physical print edition and has been removed for the legal digital version on DC Infinite. Batgirls, 2021, Issue 4, One Way or Another, Part 4 of 6. Barbara spends the night at the loft, clearing Sia out of the computer network and upgrading her security. In the morning, she's finally able to reach Dick Grayson on the phone and confirm that he's alright, and the image Sia showed was fake. She gives Batgirls the day off while she comes up with a plan to capture Tudor. While exploring the neighborhood, Stephanie and Cassandra bump into Charles Dante, who claims to recognize them from the art show despite the fact they were in costume the whole time. Cassandra also notes that she cannot read Dante's facial expressions. The night they track Tudor to his hideout, following a tracking device that Cassandra placed on him the previous night, they're unknowingly stalked by the Saints. Tudor, who is revealed to have severe burn marks on his face, is waiting for them and hits them with his gas, but new filters in their mask protects them. He takes control of Stephanie's mind again, but she is able to break free when Cassandra calls Stephanie her best friend. The Batgirls capture Tudor, and Oracle tells them to take him to Charles Dante's home office, as she believes his background in psychiatry may allow him to help Tudor. After they leave, it is revealed that Tudor is working for Dante, who is secretly the new Spellbinder. Charles was a new character created for this comic, but is the fourth holder of the Spellbinder mantle in the DC universe, the mantle having existed since Detective Comics issue 378 in 1966. Trivia: All-Star by Smash Mouth is still playing in Bondo the Car. Second trivia: Grace the Reporter makes a reference to the Robert Frost poem Nothing Gold Can Stay, which emphasizes the fleeting nature of youth, beauty, and life itself. General thoughts: maybe I'm just easy to win over, but when the narrator and the artist are directly complimenting me, I'm sold on the book. Mr. Dallowal gifting the runaway book to Cass and how much she treasured that action was really sweet. The narrator inserting the French philosopher quote over Steph's long vocab directed at the Tudor was a funny use of the comic book narrative, I felt. Batgirls 2021 issue 5, One Way or Another, part 5 of 6. Barbara comes out of retirement to help Cassandra and Stephanie defeat the Saints. Together, the three Batgirls outmaneuver the Saints and leave them tied up with GCPD. Before they leave, Barbara gives the Saints definitive proof that Simon Saint is dead and that Sia has been manipulating them. She also reprograms and adopts the Saints' robotic dog, Fido-5. Suddenly, Tudor broadcasts a message to every screen in Gotham simultaneously, calling on his followers to rise up. Barbara tracks his signal to the defunct Arkham Asylum and manages to determine Tudor's identity as Cody Klein, an artist who suffered a psychotic break after being exposed to fear toxin and spent a short time at Arkham. Cassandra and Stephanie search the abandoned asylum, while Barbara goes to Charles Dante's house to make sure he is okay. At the asylum, the Batgirls find Cody Klein's file and discover that Charles Dante was his doctor while he was at Arkham. Stephanie calls Barbara to warn her, but she is already at Dante's house. Cassandra hears a noise on the roof and goes up to check. She finds a possessed Grace O'Halloran broadcasting Tudor's message to the city and an army of possessed citizens converging on the asylum. Meanwhile, Stephanie is confronted by Tudor. At Dante's home, Spellbinder finds Barbara and pulls her into a trance in a room full of portraits of Gotham citizens, including Stephanie. In terms of general thoughts, there's something about the frame where Babs comes into an action scene in the Batgirl costume after having not seen her in costume for the first 4 issues, besides one frame set in Stephanie's imagination, where it feels earned and a punch in the air woot kind of moment. Babs saying classic Batgirl also would emulate the exact sort many long-term readers would be thinking in that exact moment, with Babs in many ways being the iconic embodiment of all things Batgirl. Batgirls 2021 issue 6, One Way or Another, part 6 of 6. We're told that Spellbinder has been taking control of people through painting their picture, entering their head, and pumping them full of fear gas. He's taken control of so many people because he got their picture from an ad campaign he set up. Remember that selfie that Stephanie took way back in issue 1? That's what he used to control Steph and all these other people. Barbara overpowers Spellbinder while the Batgirls fend off Tudor and his army. Barbara uses his system to broadcast to all of his brainwashed victims and free them from his control. The brainwashed citizens return home, and both Dante and Tudor are incarcerated in Arkham Tower. Through Barbara's takedown of Spellbinder, the creative team highlights her past as Oracle, not just her hacking skills, but her physical skills as well. Barbara has years under her belt of practice fighting from a chair before her implants let her walk again, and we see those skills in action. She is highly competent in all areas and able to take care of herself, keeping a cool head in that fight even once exposed to fear gas. Steph also has her own moment of reaffirming her own self-worth while taking down the Tudor, though disposing of a bomb that could level a city block does come at the cost of losing Bondo. Stephanie driving Tudor's bomb into the river as the bomb explodes may be a homage to The Dark Knight Rises. They pull a fake out of having killed Stephanie, but they quickly reveal that the casualty Cass is upset over having lost is Bondo, and Cass escaped, and Steph escaped unharmed at the last moment. Truly, until the end, Bondo was an all-star. All three Batgirls confide in each other that they all have wounds, and they can see how easy it would be to believe that somebody else has all the answers, can teach you how to feel okay. that some people's wounds won't heal. They aren't beyond hope, but they don't always get the help that they need. For the three ladies, they have each other to lean on. While the Batgirls reflect on their victory over food, Sia breaks into their loft and tells them she needs their help. Dun dun dun! General discussion. I like that even though the clock tower is gone, they still found a way to have Babs fighting in front of a circle window in reference to it. Also love that they acknowledged Babs' time in the chair meant her upper body had additional strength conditioning. In terms of overall general discussion, I wish they'd fleshed out the connective tissue between Tutor and the pictures being submitted for the ad campaign selfies.